This is the Floating Panels, and this time I did it with stitched shapes, layering ovals, layering squares, because they're retiring. We are indeed on my desk. So again, we're starting out with a card base that is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 2 1/8 from one side. I have 2 strips that are 1 inch by 5 1/4 inch, scored at 1 inch, 2 inch, and 4 1/4. Then I have my stitched squares and my scalloped squares. They're approximately 2 1/4 and 2 1/8. They're going to layer one on top of each other. And then I have an oval that is the stitched oval, stitched oval with the scalloped oval to go underneath it. See how perfectly they work together? So I said we took this card base, 5.5 by 8.5. I scored it 2 1/8, and I scored down. So I'm going to turn the valley into a mountain. I'm going to go ahead and use my bone folder to flatten that out. Then I'm going to flip it around, and I can either score at 2 1/8 from this side, or I can do this, or I can score and do this, and then it would just make sure my score was exactly in the right spot. But I'm just measuring up to where it comes together. I pushed this end into this end, and so they touched and then made my fold. So this will be nice and tight. I'm going to do the scoring with these as well. Like I said, this is at 1 inch, and I'm going to make sure that they are square, you know, that they line up on both sides, because there is a chance it could be skewed a little, and we don't want that. We want to make sure they are indeed squared. So there's one of our hinges, and here is the other. We're going to be stamping on our oval, and we're going to be stamping on our squares, these little stitched ones. That's going to be our stamping. And I'm also going to do a little bit of our blender brushes. So I'm going to do some ink blending. I have our blender brushes, and I have, you know, one for greens, one for blues, one for oranges, one's for reds, one's for yellows, kind of any color family. It doesn't matter what kind of blue I'm using, as long as they're kind of in the same hue, and if I have swirled it and got any excess off before I started again, they work really well. They do stay pretty true to color, and you can see they are indeed bristles. They're not foam, they're little bristles. And these are larger than the ones that I have seen on, you know, some of our other online websites. And they're super, you know, comfortable in your hand. They've got a little bit of an arc. They're fabulous. And to use them, you just take our ink pads, and I'm going to just dab in here a little bit, kind of rub it around, and that puts a lot of ink on there. Now when I first go down, you can see it does pretty dark, and it's giving a kind of a circle where it goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and start swirling off and then come on. And by my starting the swirl off of the paper and then coming on, or off the cardstock and coming on, you can see that my circles out here and all of this is blended nice and smooth. I've also got this. I've had this for years and years and years. I have used it over and over and over again. It was a die that we had quite some time ago that did indeed do clouds. We don't necessarily have that one anymore. We have one with our whales that does do waves. Or as you look, these are just basically circles. And you could even lay big circles down and do this, but it allows me to make sort of clouds by swirling above it. And you can see it's kind of a cloud. And then I would take and move this down, and I'm not going to move it down symmetrically. You want to move it down kind of at an angle. You want to flip it over, make it go the other direction, because clouds are indeed random. And so if you move this around and say use this big side, use the middle, use the side, you know, make it angled various ways, and you will get very random looking clouds. So I'm going to do one of those with the clouds, and then I'm going to do my card front as well. Like I said, let's start out square. And I'm making them kind of dark because it's raining, and rains have some of them dark clouds. Again, I'm going to move it over. And you'll see I started going up over here. So I'm going to line this up in there, but I'm tilting it up. You see how I'm just slightly different than I was on the other side? And I'm starting off and coming on. And I'm not going all the way up because I don't want to destroy this line. I'm just doing a second layer of clouds. I'm going to make them get a little lighter as they come down. I don't know if you caught that, but I started on the thing instead of off, and it is just slightly darker right there. I want to try to avoid that. This doesn't look too bad, but like I said, if you're not careful, you can end up with some stuff that's not going to look very blended. Okay, so I'm done with that blue. This is Balmy Blue. I'm going to bring on our Garden Green. I'm thinking spring. And so I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to switch to my green blender brush. I'm going to pick up some ink, start off the card, and move on. I don't know if you guys saw, I love to brag on my husband, and not only does he make those great little bow tools that make some great bows, but he also made, back there you can see my little holder that holds all of my blender brushes. And it's getting kind of an ombre look as I move up, because I'm starting out kind of dark on the bottom and then it's moving up. So if I start dark at the bottom and then move up as it lightens, we're going to get that shading that we're looking for. And then, like I said, we're going to be using the Under My Umbrella stamp set, and this is a bundle. It comes with a punch. We talked last week about how I put this into the punch, just a blank piece of cardstock, and then I lined it up in the Stamparatus. So if you missed that, you might want to look at last week's video. We did a really cute card, and I placed this in my Stamparatus, then set the stamps in it, and then used the plate to pick them up, so that when I stamped them, they were lined up correctly to be fed into the punch and punch all three in one fell swoop. But today we're just stamping. So I have those already mounted. Oh, I do need the Balmy Blue again for our raindrops. I'm just going to do a couple of those. And I did them on the inside of the card as well. You can kind of watch the block and make sure that you're not getting, that's when these little pieces of the Simply Chamois would work really well for getting those little blotches off. But I want it only in the corner. I don't want it on the inside, so I'm going to flip this under. So I've got some rain coming in from the corner. And then I'm ready to start putting these on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down about 1 inch from the top. And so you can either measure that out or you can eyeball it, but the idea is we're going to put one here and one here, because about 1 inch, because once we place these on it, we don't want them to hit in the middle. We want them to have clearance in here. We don't want the two of them to run into one another. So you can see, you know, about how far. You know, 1 inch, and then I've got this kind of centered. I've got, you know, a little over 1/4 inch at the top. Like I said, I'm eyeballing. You can totally measure it if you wish, but I'm going to just go for it. We could also, like I said, do a little blending at the bottom. You could put some grass down there if you wanted. This got a little bit of ink on it. One of the things I recommend off of, you know, an art store is the sand eraser, because you can bring those in and they will do a pretty good job of taking off other colors of ink. You don't want to rub too hard because it will start making it pill. for quick and easy jobs, if you just, you know, don't want to ruin a card and you think you got it, that does bring that off. So that's a sand eraser by Mono Tombow, and I can link it on my blog too. If you need an affiliate link for that, I've got one. You can get them on Amazon. So I've got these little pieces, like I said, and I'm going to take and we're going to mount them by putting this short 1 inch against the outer panel. And see, I've got another blip there. Again, I don't think I'm going to worry about it too much because I think I can hide it. When this comes in, you're not really going to see it. So again, don't panic and scrap the whole card. That's not going to be necessary. We'll just cover that up. They won't even notice. They'll be so wowed by the fact that the card moves and the panels go up and down, they won't notice a little blip of a stamping mistake. So don't panic. I know some of you guys beat yourself up over that, and please don't, because things happen, and it's part of why it's handmade. And that's why people love it, because you put your time, effort, and care into making something special just for them. And in today's world of, you know, all being quarantined and locked into our house, there is no better time to be sending out just "I'm thinking of you" kind of cards to your friends so that they don't feel alone. We have heard a lot on the news about how suicide rates and things have gone up and depression's on the rise, and I've got some firsthand experience with all of that. So definitely make some cards, send them to your friends, let them know they're cared about. Don't panic on the little stuff. We're going to take the 1 inch, that's the 1 inch by itself. That's going over here. About an inch down from the top, and then I'm not quite letting it touch that fold. So that's what we're doing. We're putting the small 1 inch by itself up against this fold, about an inch up from the bottom, folding this one over, closing it, letting it fall naturally where it goes, and pushing down. So there it goes. Now, I didn't press really hard when I put the glue down initially, and so that's why I was able to lift them up. You know, there is, both of them fold flat. You could put a belly band around it if you wanted. But now we're ready to adhere the panels. And like I said, they're going to go right here on top of these. And you just want to make sure that they're not going to hit or overlap in the middle. Okay, you want to give it a little bit of room. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and stamp a sentiment. Bring back in my balmy blue. I'm going to clean up my stamp. This is what we call our Stampin Scrub. And I just sprayed a little bit of stamp cleaner on this side. This side is wet. This side is dry. And then I'm going to just gently tap, tap, tap. And then straight up and down, even pressure. It's usually good to lean over, you know, see the top of my head, and look down at what you're doing. But you could put something there in the middle, down here, up to you, wherever. I'm going to leave this open so I can write at the bottom. And then, like I said, these have a little teeny overlap. And so I could use sticky, you know, the seal, sticky glue, but I think I'm going to go liquid. Again, it's got that 1/8 of an inch border that's pretty small. I want to make sure that I can wiggle it some. So here I'm just kind of pushing it around until I think it's even. I'm more than happy to sit down and go over with you. If you want to do a one-on-one Zoom, you want to give me a call, you want to email back and forth, I will definitely help you. Okay, we did do the sponging in the background. This is going to cover a little bit of it up. That's okay. I probably want to stick with darker colors. The reason I used the Night of Navy and the Real Red was that I wanted to make sure that our sponging didn't get, you know, blurred into it. I couldn't, you know, if I tried to make it yellow, we'd probably want to stamp color it first and then do the clouds over it with a masking technique, which I'm going to show you on the front. but don't worry about it. If we just pick a dark color, we're okay. So I'm going to come in with my Night of Navy. These have got two ends. It's got the bullet tip and then the brush end. I'm going to start with the bullet, and I'm going to come out from the corners where I think it's going to be darker. So my shading is going to come out of the corners. And they're nice and tight because the ones we had before, we had blendabilities that were an alcohol-based marker, and the caps on them from the manufacturer were not tight enough, or there was little holes that allowed air to get in there, and they dried out too fast. And so these don't have that problem. This is where I was going to show you masking. You'll notice my boots here are a stamp, and then the flowers are a stamp. And there's, you know, tops to our boots. But I wanted the flowers to appear to be hanging inside the boots, but I didn't want the lines coming through. So I'm going to show you how we do that. We're going to stamp whatever we want to be in the foreground. Like if you had a bear and he's holding a honey pot, you would stamp the thing in the foreground, you know, his honey pot, these flowers, whatever's in front, stamp first. Then you're going to stamp it again onto a Post-it note. And so let's see, I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and take and stamp my flowers. And then I stamped it again on a Post-it note. This is the sticky part. And I'm going to lay that right over the top. I've cut it out with some scissors. I didn't need to cut out the top because really no other stamp's going to touch that. You can actually even see where when I stamped the boots, how it kind of caught that top of the rim. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to come in with my boots and I'm going to overlap it onto the Post-it note. And so then when I take this off, those lines come with it. So you can see that now the flowers look like they're popping out of the boot. I'm getting my fingers really inky, so I'm going to try to get some of this ink out of the way because you can see it's starting to... We'll need to find some embellishment to put there, right? Okay, the boots on the front I made red. So I'm going to go back and do the same thing. So I'm using the darker color. I got my first shot. I was super excited about that. My husband and I got a call and the doctor said, you know, we've had some no-shows, cancellations, whatever it was. And they said, can you get in here in like 10 minutes? And I'm like, yes, we'll be there. So we went running in and we got our first shot of Moderna. So I'm excited. We'll get our second one sometime here in April. And then I can have classes in the house by May. I am so excited. The red for the boots, this is real red. So those of you who are local, I'm going to start doing classes again in May and we'll be fully vaccinated. So I know several of my local people are getting vaccinated as well. So good news there all the way around. Again, I'll come back in, I'll stamp the flowers I did across the bottom because I thought the front needed a little something extra. But for the little squares, I went onto this section. And I'm going to have the thing up top. And again, I'm making sure there's the teensiest little bit of extra over here because when it opens, I don't want it to interfere with that fold. So it's not poking up the top, it's not hitting this hinge, and it's not going to hit my one on the bottom. And we went to the doctor. My husband says, does the doctor have a logo for his office? I'm like, I don't know, I guess so. So we found out and they do. And so right before we went, he whipped out a laser engraved tumbler for them with their office logo on it and dropped it off and said, here, you know, this is for the doctor. give it to him and, you know, say thank you, whatever. So they did, and the office manager called today. She wants to place a bulk order for all the girls in her office. So that was super cool. Wasn't totally the intention, but it's nice it worked out that way. So I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to place this in the center. I only want it glued on one half. Okay, so I'm going to put adhesive only on this side. I don't want to glue the thing shut, but I do want it good and stuck over here. So I've kind of got my finger here because this is where the oval stopped. I'm putting too much adhesive there because, again, it's going to get lots of movement. I can go, I've got some resin drops. I think I'll make some raindrops. I'll cover up my little boo-boo there and then color in my flowers, and we will have a card that will look just like this. Thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Lisa. I'm with Queen Bee Creations, and I thank you for joining me for our online class today. We go live every Monday, 2:30 here on Facebook. This was today's panel card. This is a remake of one I did 2 weeks ago, where the sound really messed up on me, and we redid it. So different kind of card. Last time I did an Easter card. This time it's just raindrops with some boots and flowers and fun things, but the folds are all the same. So again, it's one of those things where I can show you, once you get a fold down, converting it to whatever project you're working on is fairly easy. And I will get this video edited and put on over on YouTube, and then I will hook this to my Easter card on my blog because I had some complaints on that video, and that video is going in the trash. So I'm not going to edit that anymore. It did not work. Thank you for joining me, and happy stamping. Thanks. Bye.